Howdy, howdy. Welcome on in to the pre-show, before the free show, where I'm sitting next to a man who is on his second
I was literally going to say that.
podcast
That's
of the
funny
day.
you mentioned that.
We're together too much. We're starting to
I know.
verbiage the
Like
same.
we're starting to share the same brain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is a scary thought.
Yeah, I was on a podcast this morning.
I think to say, give you an opportunity to hype up our dude.
Yeah. So, actually, Texas Football Today's own.
Yes.
Travis Heim of Heim Barbecue and his lovely wife, Emma. Wonderful wife, Emma. She's a real sweetheart.
Which Emma's Beans? Does she do beans? Which one? There's something on their menu that she is like
it potato
the
salad?
goat
Let's
of. It's either
see.
potato salad or beans. I really thought it was
there.
beans.
So it's Heim Barbecue over there in Fort Worth. They have a new location in Dallas too. They have 2 locations in Fort Worth, 1 location in Dallas. And what is their recipe?
We passed the Dallas one, dropping Step off
Let's
at
look at
the
menu.
Love Field Airport the other day.
Yeah, she's got something like one of her sides is, let's see. I don't know if they have it on there, but Emma did have a thing on it. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Emma is the real brains behind the operation. She tries to create Travis
Beans.
But they have a podcast. They have a podcast called Heim Time.
Amazing.
HEIMTIME. Heim Time podcast. And they Travis reached out to me to be on the podcast because it is ostensibly a podcast about, in the same way that this show's about football, their podcast is about like barbecue and like being a small business owner and things like that. But like,
and then they have a jabroni like you on.
Then they called me because they wanted to talk like the SEC, UT, OU, and stuff like that. What I mean, he's a big TCU guy,
yeah,
so
I
we
think
want
so.
to
He's
talk about that.
Big 12 guy.
I'm glad that Emma was there for a number of reasons. One, because she's wonderful, but 2, also because like it gave us like an opportunity. Like she was like, she genuinely didn't have a great feel for like what was going on and like why it was. So it gave us an opportunity to like really hit the reset button and like talk about like why conference realignment's happening, why Texas and OU are leaving, why they're not leaving till 2025 for now. Things like that.
To be able to not get so far in the weeds of 2 guys who are engulfed in all that.
So they recorded over at a studio, an awesome studio over there in Fort Worth.
They got quite the setup, man.
I think you and I got to go on a field trip.
Yeah.
But we had a great time over there. They everyone asking, did they bring barbecue? They did not bring barbecue because it's 9 in the morning, guys. And also they're more than just barbecue connoisseurs. They're also, people. And,
well, the other thing is too, they're renting out the studio set, so I don't know if the studio guy. Yeah,
they have to get a babysitter to come in and watch little Izzy, who's their I think it's Izzy. Oh my gosh, I really hope it is. They have a daughter now, who is 7 months old, so I had to get a babysitter so that they could come and talk with me. But we had a great time. They're editing it now. It should be up. They have a YouTube page, and then wherever you get your podcast, Heim Time. Podcast. It's I can promise you that there were 3 people in the room. 2 people are worth listening to,
and then there's you.
I was also there.
I was gonna say I was trying to figure out if it was live or not, and so I went and I Googled it because I was gonna watch again for 2 people and then you, and one of their most watched YouTube video is Travis tells you how to cut a brisket Texas style. So on top of checking out the podcast, there is also valuable information to be learned on their YouTube page.
And we had him on the podcast right before the pandy hit.
We did, yeah.
And so if you want to go back to, I want to say like January, February 2020, we had Travis on the show, and we just talked barbecue and his upbringing and stuff like that. And yeah, it was they asked me to come on. I was like, of course,
absolutely,
of course.
Something I learned.
They're. Let me tell you about important friends.
Oh
okay? Important friends. That is an important friend.
Amanda Atwell, who is a good reporter buddy down in the RGV. When she comes back home, she's from Fort Worth. I know that she always says they have the breakfast tacos in the airport. So that's a game changer. Talk about welcome to Fort Worth. Whew.
So they did ask me. They did at the end. They did rapid fire questions, and one of them was, "How many bacon burn ends do you think Matt Stepp could eat?" To which I replied, and I had the perfect response. I very rarely had the perfect response.
Yes.
I had the perfect response, which was, speaking as Matt Stepp's agent, why don't we find out? Because
That is content that everyone wants to see.
Let me tell you, he's a little hamster. He's a little guy, but he's always running. He's always running, guys. All right. So anyway,
you're welcome, Step.
Make sure you subscribe to the Heim Time podcast. Our buddies over there, Travis and Emma Heim. A fun podcast we had. It should be going up today, tomorrow, something like that. But we had a great time this morning there on their podcast.
Very cool.
Okay, hit the theme expo. Let's go! Free money! Free money!
Hey, how to sing blue baby. The shot glass in your hand.
From the Dave Campbell Texas
It ain't how to sing blue baby.
This is Texas Football Today, a show that's being pointed at.
You didn't see my cue.
I did see your
times.
cue. Don't fret. I got this.
Whatever, fella.
My name's Greg Tepper. I'm the managing editor of Dave Campbell's Texas Football magazine, texasfootball.com, a corresponding website. Thank you for spending part of your day with us. Whether you're watching us live at texasfootball.com, Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch, or listening to us on the podcast, which you can subscribe to on the podcast vendor of your choice. Either way, thank you for doing your part to support your local mediocre internet show. I am sitting right here, sitting over yonder in the control booth.
And now who's pointing?
She is the Duchess of the Dorks. Listen, turnabout's fair play. She is the Duchess of the Dorks. She is Ashley Pickle. Hello, Ashley Pickle.
Howdy, friends.
How are you?
I am doing quite well. It's not overbearingly cold in here today, so that helps.
You and I were having a conversation in confidence that I'll now bring to the air.
As always.
About, it was, I guess, Monday when we were getting done unloading the stuff from Lone Star Conference Media Days.
Okay, I don't know where this is going.
Where you and I made the comment about how it's starting to feel like football weather.
Oh, yeah.
And it's weird because I think most people think of football weather as like, oh, it's getting chilly outside.
Yeah.
You know, the leaves are changing. It's getting darker
exactly.
earlier. Exactly.
Windows open season at the house.
Open,
you know, you've got the food smell, the windows open.
But for me, and maybe it's just because I've covered Texas football so long. Football weather, the first bit of football weather, like, don't get me wrong, when it's cold, that's football weather.
Right.
But the first bit of football weather is when it's just super, like, hair dryer in the face hot.
Literally, you step onto concrete and you're like, I can feel it on my feet. Yep.
2 days are around the corner.
Yes.
Got week 1 coming up.
It's the first 3 weeks of the season that I'm sitting out there right before I go on air, just trying to blot my makeup down, because if not, it's sweat season.
Same thing here.
Sometimes, in your climate controlled studio.
Sometimes the studio gets up to like 77, and I mean, talk about drama. Today is Wednesday, July 28th, 2021. 120 days till Thanksgiving. Happy birthday to... Oh, I had somebody. Oh, Super Bill Bradley. Texas Football Today's own. Super Bill Bradley turned 78 today. Happy birthday, cool. Super Bill. Episode 1210. On today's show, guys, we got This Week in Recruiting with Greg Powers, Next Level Athlete. A lot of good stuff to talk about, including our new 5-star prospect and
that dropped
what
today.
Will Texas to the SEC, Texas and OU to the SEC mean for recruiting. We talk about that with Greg Powers, Next Level Athlete. In the back half of the show, I, for some reason, had a great conversation. Let me be clear. The surprise is that I had a great conversation, not that our guest had a great conversation. Our guest, Colby Carthel, head coach at Stephen F. Austin, always a great guest.
Oh, yeah. He's a man of the people.
It's just surprising that I got to interview him.
Yes.
That's the surprise.
Yeah.
Anyway, I had a great conversation with Colby Carthel of Stephen F. Austin that we will share with you coming up here at the back half of the program. So stay tuned for that. Do we have first 4 through the door?
We sure do. It was Aaron Arbuckle, Daniel Agnew, Tanner Solis, and Rob Hadaway. Welcome in, fellas.
Howdy, 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 friends. Okie dokie. Let's get right to it. We talked with Greg Powers, Next Level Athlete, about all things recruiting in the state of Texas. A big week in recruiting per usual. Here's our conversation with Greg Powers, Next Level Athlete, on Texas Football Today. I'm Greg Tepper. That's Greg Powers. And this is This Week
in Recruiting.
It's This Week in Recruiting with Greg Powers of Next Level Athlete. Follow him on Twitter at GPowerScout. Follow Next Level Athlete on Twitter at Next Level D1. See his fine work at TexasFootball.com/recruiting. And, of course, this is brought to you by our good chicken friends at Chicken Express. Chicken Express, Greg Powers approved.
Definitely love that Chicken Express.
Love that Chicken Express.
You got it DoorDashed yesterday.
I did get DoorDashed.
That's a flex right there. To the office.
I got it delivered. Okay, to be clear, I am lazy, but my car was in the shop.
Yes,
so
he did not have a vehicle. I'll give you that.
I didn't have a vehicle, so I had to have it delivered to me. Let me tell you, though, Chicken Express delivered.
Slaps.
It's a lot. Okay. All right. All right. Let's start This Week in Recruiting. A lot to get to. We're going to start with our prospect on the rise. Our prospect on the rise is Duncanville 2022 defensive end Omari Abor. We've kind of talked around Omari Abor a lot on this program. There's no avoiding him now because he is an official Dave Campbell's Texas football 5-star prospect in the class of 2022, the 4th prospect to get it, joining Quinn Ewers, South Lake Carroll quarterback, Galena Park North Shore cornerback, Denver Harris, and Summer Creek offensive tackle, Kelvin Banks. He's our number 3 prospect in the state. He's the number 1 defensive end. This guy is a super stud. Powers, what is it about him that put him over the top to go from elite to super elite?
Well, I mean, he climbed up 1 spot in the state rankings. He was already in the top 5, so we pretty much had a good idea that he would be a 5-star prospect by the time it was all said and done. At the end of the day, the top 5 will all be 5 stars, and we'll continue to evaluate for that 5th and final spot. I like to name that 5th guy like around the first week of December, where you can take in the whole season and really look and evaluate which guys made some really strong improvements throughout the course of their senior season. But there's no sense in waiting on a guy like Abor. I mean, 6'4", 245 pounds. He's a strong side defensive end, but he's also a guy who could really get after the quarterback, so he can slide around and do some different things. He's continuing to add some good size, making him even more versatile, and he just brings a little bit of everything to the table. But what I really like about his game tape, he plays with a chip on his shoulder. You know, he's a guy that is relentless in pursuit of the football and really gets after it play after play. And all the top schools in the country are coming after him. I mean, he took a June official visits to LSU, Ohio State, and Alabama. He's also considering schools like Texas, Texas A&M, and Oklahoma. And this is the perfect segue. Was there some news in college football this week about the SEC? Well, Omari Abor
something.
Abor now has plans to take an unofficial visit to Texas this weekend. He's admittedly said that OU was like his childhood favorite growing up. They're now going to the SEC, and it really just opens the door, I guess, maybe for a bigger conversation here, Tepper, that you may want to talk about.
Well, yeah, let me ask you about that. And because the next guy we're going to talk about is a recent Texas A&M commit, so it's kind of on the topic. Here is my positioning statement. There's a lot of people who are saying that Texas going from the Big 12 to the SEC is going to severely impact Texas A&M's recruiting. This is where I'm at on it. I think that's way overstated. I think that A&M has the strength of the program, where they are right now. There's no reason to think that Texas coming into the SEC is suddenly going to mean that they don't recruit at a great level. Am I crazy? Do you share with that? I'm not saying there's nothing to it. I'm saying the idea that suddenly Texas joins the SEC and A&M's going to crater, I just don't necessarily buy that.
No, I mean, does Texas or Texas A&M ever really have a problem landing top recruits? You know, that's the question to me. I think that you have to recruit differently based on your in-conference competition, the type of schools that you're going to be playing. I would say the main thing that Oklahoma and Texas have to look at as they transition into the SEC in 2025, though there's plenty of time, is in the trenches, right? I think that's something that schools like Alabama and LSU in particular Georgia, do a great job of, is getting these big, speedy offensive linemen, powerful guys on the defensive front, and depth. You know, depth at those positions makes all the difference. You know, when one of the top guys on Alabama's offensive line goes down, they just plug in another 5-star behind him to pick up the slack. And to compete with those guys, you have to do that. And we've seen Texas A&M in recent years add that depth and talent to me on both fronts. As I look at their last few recruiting classes, that's the thing that jumps out to me are the type of players that they've been adding up front. And Texas and Oklahoma are going to have to match that, not only to hang with Alabama, LSU, Georgia. They're going to have to do that to hang with Texas A&M.
Let's now move on, speaking of Texas A&M, to our commit of the week. Our commit of the week is 2022 Argyle defensive tackle Jaden Scarlett, who has committed to Texas A&M. He had offers from Mizzou and Oklahoma, also ostensibly SEC schools. This is going to take a minute for me to get used to. He is the number 57 prospect on our DCTF Hot 100. He's a guy who transferred recently. He played last year at Flower Mound Coram Deo, a relatively small private school. He's transferring to a, let's just say, a pretty prominent school in Argyle. And now he is committed to Texas A&M. This feels like another in a long line of really impressive defensive line commits for the Aggies.
Yeah, I really like the pickup of Jaden Scarlett because he's a guy who's tremendously athletic up front. He wraps up a lot of tackles. And one of the things that really jumped out to me as we were doing prospect evaluations and watching guys through the pandemic when we weren't able to see them in person was I think he had like a 55-inch box jump. That's really impressive for a guy that's weighing in at 265, 270 pounds, and he closes on the ball carriers extremely well. He did play private school competition the last couple of seasons, so I'll be interested to see how he transitions to playing for a school like Argyle, but I don't think you're going to see Scarlett miss a beat. This is a guy who flat out gets after it every single play. He plays with a high energy. He's a guy who loves to make big plays behind the line of scrimmage and you know, basically flex up front, you know, and that's what I think that he'll be able to do once he transitions. Another one of these versatile guys, I think that he can slide around and play some multiple positions, non-traditional defensive tackle in a sense, you know, playing on the edge. You know, he's a strong side defensive end that can get after and not lose any speed or lose a step as he chases after ball carriers or holds the line of scrimmage.
That's one of the things that I think is interesting. We mentioned that he transferred from Flower Mound Coram Deo. This is a relatively newish program in, DFW. It's a smaller private school. It's TAPS Division II. And that's not to say that there aren't great players in TAPS Division II. Austin Regents is a TAPS Division II team. Austin St. Michael's. I mean, there's plenty of really good programs there. Dallas Christian, and they've put out their fair share of big-time playmakers. But I do think it's interesting that, I think it's fair to say that moving from there to 4A, he is going to get more consistent competition than he did there. Not necessarily better at the top end, but certainly more consistent competition week in and week out. And I think that, you and I have had long conversations about private schools and recruiting on that regard. I'm very interested to see this transition. I'm very interested to see him go from what is, let's be honest, an off the beaten path private school to a state champion, a state title contender, once again, the number one team in 4A. I'm interested to see how that adjusts and what his film looks like after that, because his film on playing Coram Deo is super impressive, probably not surprisingly so.
Right, and he's going to get a chance to go up against college-level type of offensive linemen. Now, that's the thing that I think when you're watching the Coram Deo tape, you're not seeing him have those matchups with 250 to 300 pounders quite that often. And just looking at Argyle's 2019 schedule, they played Waco La Vega twice. They played Texarkana Pleasant Grove. They played Paris. They played Stephenville. So they're playing some guys that are going to bring some legitimate college-ready, college-level type of offensive linemen, and that's going to test him a little bit more than I think that he would have faced at Flower Mound Coram Deo. That's just my opinion as well.
We're talking This Week in Recruiting with Greg Powers, the Next Level Athlete here on Texas Football Today. Get involved in the conversation at hashtag TF Today. Let's go to our underclassmen of the week. Our underclassmen of the week is 2023 wide receiver Ashton Cozart. He's one of the state's hottest prospects right now. He is playing at Flower Mound Marcus. He transferred to Richland from the state of Washington. Then he's now transferring to Flower Mound Marcus. I believe did we see him? Was he out there at 7-on-7?
He
He was, yeah.
He was, and we recently spoke to him he was one of our featured prospects as a DCTF interview here as well, kind of announcing the news that he was going to Flower Mound Marcus.
And so this is a guy who has really heated up recruiting-wise. He has 23 offers. The most recent ones would be Oklahoma and Alabama. Those are pretty good schools. Ashton Cozart, a 4-star in the 2023 ranks, is a guy who certainly, if you don't know his name now, you're going to want to know it immediately.
I don't think it's really fair for me to say I think that Ashton Cozart is going to be like a breakout star in Texas high school football in 2021 because he has all these offers now, right? He didn't have a chance to put up huge numbers last year at Richland, but I think his connection with 2024 quarterback Cole Welliver at Flower Mound Marcus is going to play huge dividends there for both of those guys. You know, Welliver now has a bona fide guy that has 23 offers with schools like Alabama, Oklahoma, TCU, Texas A&M to throw the football to, in addition to Ricky Dudley's son, Dallas Dudley, who's already, a bona fide go-to type of guy in that offense. Going to have the benefit of what many are calling the next big thing at quarterback, throwing him the football. So I think this is going to be a perfect 1-2 punch right there at Flower Mound Marcus. And Ashton Cozart, really, I mean, all the top schools are now coming after him. 6'3", 180 pounds, silky smooth in his route running, has good hands, and he kind of plays something that I really like in the wide receiver position, confidence. He plays with confidence, and he brings it every single snap. So Cozart's one of those guys. As far as Texas high school football is concerned, I'm looking for him to have a breakout and be one of those guys who everybody talks about. But on the recruiting trail, he's already broke out.
Most certainly a guy in Ashton Cozart that you're going to hear his name a lot. Finally, let's round it all out with our Recruit of the Week. Our Recruit of the Week, we've been talking commitments. Let's talk decommitments. 2022 Port Arthur Memorial cornerback Jalen Gilbo has decommitted from Texas. He put out a statement saying that he wants to open up his recruitment. There are tea leaves that suggest that TCU is on the right path here for Jalen Gilbo, and I mean, when has TCU ever put out a quality defensive back?
Well, the thing to think about here is just watching this recruitment play out. We say time and time again, watch what they do. Don't necessarily listen to what they say. Well, what Jalen Gilbo did is he took an official visit to TCU while he was committed to Texas. He took his official visit to Texas, and then he took his official visit to TCU. And that's when you start to really think, is this thing going to last? Does Texas feel comfortable with him taking, at that time, a visit to a conference rival, an in-state conference rival, no less? Is this thing starting to be something that we should more closely monitor? And it was something that we should closely monitor. And now I feel like TCU's in a pretty good spot to land a commitment from Gilbo, but he has no shortage of options. I mean, if he takes some time and looks around, then this thing could certainly swivel or pivot in favor of some other schools. He has offers from Texas A&M, Alabama, Georgia, LSU. Have you heard of those schools? Oregon, USC, and many more. So TCU's in a good spot here, I think, and looks good to get a commitment from Jalen Gilbo. But if he does have 3 more official visits that he could take, and will some of these top schools get him on campus? I'm pretty interested to see if A&M gets involved here. Mm-hmm. You know, that would be one to keep an eye on.
He is Greg Powers of Next Level Athlete, coming to us live via satellite. That's how I'm going to refer to, via satellite.
I like that.
That feels very like old school and like, very official. He's our recruiting analyst.
It also feels commanding.
Yeah, via satellite. I have a satellite. He is Greg Powers, Next Level Athlete. Follow him on Twitter at GPowerScout. Follow Next Level Athlete on Twitter, Next Level D1. See his fine work at TexasFootball.com/recruiting. Powers, appreciate your time. Maybe next week you can be sitting in this chair next to me. I miss you.
Well, little update for this week in recruiting. Next week, Powers goes to vacation, so maybe the week after.
Oh, ripping our hearts out.
There he is, Greg Powers. Next Level Athlete. Abandoning us next week,
apparently. See you never, bud.
Abandoning us next week for This Week in Recruiting, of course. Find work at TexasFootball.com/recruiting. We are Texas Football Today. We're here every weekday at noon on TexasFootball.com, talking football in the Lone Star State. You can follow us on Twitter at TCTF, like us on Facebook, Facebook.com/Dave Campbell's. Follow us on Instagram, instagram.com/Dave Campbell's, and, of course, see us at texasfootball.com. TexasFootball.com is where you can find complete coverage of high school football, college football, and recruiting all across the Lone Star State. Hope you'll consider becoming a Dave Campbell's Texas Football Insider. TexasFootball.com/subscribe. A lot of good stuff up there on the site right now. If you're into that kind of thing, TexasFootball.com/subscribe. Plus, you get 2021 Summer Edition Dave Campbell's Texas Football. Get ready for the... Oh, no, I'm blocking those guys. I don't want to do that. Become a Dave Campbell's Texas Football Insider. Get ready for the season with a 2021 Summer Edition of Dave Campbell's Texas Football. So make sure you go to TexasFootball.com/subscribe. Makes a great gift for August.
Yeah. I mean, okay, here's the deal. Back to school is coming.
Ooh,
and anyone who
get it for your teacher.
Goes back to school dreads the beginning of August. So get your magazine so you can read it and kind of get more excited for football to start, and don't focus so much on school. Focus on football. That's what I'm saying.
TexasFootball.com/subscribe. Focus on football.
Yeah, not school. Yes, that's the official stance of TFT.
Ooh, I feel bad about that.
I mean, that's how I got this job.
Ashley Pickle, cautionary tale. All right. While we were in San Antonio, do you remember that? We were in San Antonio?
Sure do. I'll never forget the beautiful 2-0.
While we were in San Antonio, we caught up with a number of coaches, a number of big-time celebs coming back to the booth. One of them, the head coach of those, Stephen F. Austin Lumberjacks, Axum Jacks. He is Colby Carthel.
With a shirt on this time.
With a shirt on. I didn't ask him about taking off his shirt. That is the one thing I didn't ask him about.
That's a flaw in your journalistic abilities.
I regret that. But we did ask him a lot of other important questions. Here's my conversation with Stephen F. Austin head coach Colby Carthel here on Texas Football Today. Greg Tepper of Dave Campbell's Texas Football on TexasFootball.com here in San Antonio, here at the THSCA Coaching School and Convention with, I would say, one of the more low-key, measured, quiet members of the coaching fraternity here in the state of Texas. Stephen F. Austin, coach. Colby Carthel, coach. It's good to see you. You snuck up on me.
I try to do that from time to time.
Real low-key guy. First and foremost, we were talking before we went on the air. Just imagine, it feels great for me to be here. I imagine for a coach and a coaching junkie like you are, that this has just got to be just hog heaven to be just back here in person.
It really is. It's great to have COVID, in our rearview mirror. But, just as a coach, in Division I, NCAA, with all their infinite wisdom, they shut us down for a year and a half of recruiting. D2 and D3 coaches have been out and been in high schools, and we haven't been. And so just June 1st, they released us, but it was a dead period. We couldn't. So this is our first time as a staff to be out and kind of interact with all our high school coaching buddies at THSCA. And so it's extra special this year just to be out and say, hey, we're still around and you are too. It's good to see you again. Great year last year. And just interact and it's a great fraternity.
Well, and you mentioned the recruiting aspect of it, that it is so difficult because of the restrictions that you guys were under. And so I guess my question is, how did you stay engaged? Because you still got to field a team. You still got to go and get some quality players there to play for the Jacks. Like, how did you stay engaged with these guys?
I think just this fraternity, THSCA, and our staff, and I've been a college coach now in this state for 22 years, and my dad before that, and so just a lot of relationships, and we fell back on that, because now you're picking up the phone, and without doing camps, without doing home visits, without doing school visits, you're really having to lean on the high school coach. And that's what's so great about straight line recruiting. But, you're having to do it now through phone. And, Coach Tepper, are you sure, is this a good kid? 22 years of relationship, you're not getting sold a bill of goods. And so we felt really good about the class we were able to put together at SFA and moving forward even through that pandemic recruiting.
Well, and you guys had certainly had a unique 2020 season. You guys kind of, I don't want to say go rogue, but you guys go and you do your own thing. You schedule games, kind of an outlaw schedule, as six-man folks call it.
You bet.
And put it together and go out there and play some games and win some games and say, we're going to stay on schedule. They say in journalism, don't ask a question you don't know the answer to.
Mm-hmm.
Was that the right move for y'all?
It was, and that's what, when it happened, we did what was best for us. And I think that whether it's football or journalism or just, somebody back home, everybody during the pandemic did what was best for them and their families and their businesses and their and for our program, that was what we needed to do. We were banned from the postseason from the previous regime and all this, so we couldn't go to the playoffs if we wanted to. I had no intention of putting our guys through 2 full seasons in 1 calendar year. Some people did, and we'll see how that's still to be determined how that works out. There's some guys that just got through playing 10 games 2 months ago and fixing to play, 10 or 15 more. So we did what was better. We're a young team. We knew we needed to play. We need to learn how to win, and we were able to do that. We played the rogue schedule, put it together in about 2 weeks, played 4 FBS schools, and we're very competitive in those games. And then every FCS or D2 team we played, we won. The games we were supposed to win, we won. So for us in SFA, the Lumberjacks learned how to win. And 6-4, first winning season in nearly a decade, we got that behind us. That's a big step for us. Felt like we were a good team, but then we had the off season in the spring, summer access, and so now that young team, everybody's been excited to watch. They're starting to, fill out a little bit. 3 of them, I think, started shaving this summer. So, I mean, we may have a chance to make some noise this year.
Well, and it's interesting that you bring that up because this, you mentioned that your Lumberjacks learned how to win. What did you learn about your Lumberjacks? What did you learn about this roster that you've helped to assemble here?
Just that they're so resilient, and we knew it was going to be a tough job when we took over there at the end of 18, and it was, and there were some things, some punches we didn't see coming just with the academic and NCAA stuff that we inherited. But, when they hit us with a postseason ban, been there a year and a half, we're in a COVID break, everybody's on Zoom, and we had to tell our team we're banned from the postseason. Usually, you lose half your team to it's open season. We didn't have a single kid transfer out. And I knew then our culture was right, and we still had some growing to do, but our culture was right. And we told them through this pandemic, this thing's going to make excuse makers out of a lot of people and champions out of a few. And we're determined to be champions. And, we crowned ourselves Southland Conference champions of the fall. Us and Abilene played. We beat ACU, so we're champs of the fall. But we're talking about bigger fish to fry than just that. And I think you'll see that this fall and moving forward with our program where we're able to compete and take that next step going from good to great.
Well, and speaking of which, you guys are on the move. Moving over to the WAC, to a new conference, going over there as kind of the part of the Texas 4, moving over there. I'm interested in what those conversations are like within the program about a new conference and a new, kind of new conference. You're familiar with a number of these teams that are coming, but what are the conversations like within the program about that?
Very, very excited,
yeah.
And just, kind of aligning ourselves with like-minded universities. I think it's going to pay huge dividends, not just for SFA football, but for our athletic department and our school in general. And just so much more exposure and just a conference that's moving, forward. And that's kind of what we were looking for with the Texas 4 that left. And so it'll be a unique year this year, playing for a WAC championship and then the AQ7 for automatic qualifying, playing Eastern Kentucky, Jacksonville State, and Central Arc, and then moving forward, you'll continue to see teams add to the WAC, and WAC's got such great history, Heisman Trophy winners, national champions, and everything else, and so it really has already started paying dividends in recruiting. I promise you, just the brand of the WAC.
Well, and you guys bring back a lot of really exciting playmakers. Guys like Xavier Gibson, guys like Trey Self, guys who are big time playmakers. Do you feel like this? The offense, I thought, looked pretty good at times last year. Do you feel like it's got another step that it can take this year?
Most definitely. We played some really good football, especially there about week 7, 8, 9 there towards the end of the year, and we were pretty beat up there, and with opt-outs and everything, COVID now. I mean, it was a limited roster, and we were really playing some good football. So I look at across, like I was saying earlier, their bodies have changed. We finally had an off season. We hadn't had one all year or in our tenure there. Their bodies are changing, and we have got 100-something out there at summer workouts, and like 84 of them are freshmen and sophomores. So the bulk of our team is still really, really young on paper, but they've got a lot of game experience, and so I think we're going to have a really good team this year. But we've built this thing to win forever, and we've watered the roots, not the leaves, since we've been there, and recruiting Texas high school football players and really investing in that. Some people live in the transfer portal, some live in high schools, and this is the path we've chosen because we're going to build a great program that's going to win for a long time.
Oh, finally, Coach, folks who follow your social media presence know that you are a big fan of the hashtag Be a Big Coach.
You bet.
You're big eater. And so I'm going to ask you the most controversial question I'm going to ask you, which is, let's just say the last year or so, what's been the MVP stop on the Be a Big Coach Colby Carthel tour?
Man, there's
told
been some
you,
good ones.
I told you, I'm a tough question.
I had to work there, so there's a couple of nights we fired up the Big Green Egg, and when you're stuck at home, that was really good. I still one of the best nights is just when you grab a big old bag of Julio's chips and Julio's salsa and just go to town there. I mean, and shoot, there's some good ones out there. I'm fixing to put on a show here later today in San Antonio, so stay tuned on that one. So there'll be one that hits the Twitter. But if it's worthy to get a post, if you can't be a big time coach, be a big coach. If it's worthy of a post, it's worthy you stopping and eating, I promise you. Okay, and that's non-promoted. I don't get paid to do this.
Yeah. Well,
I get paid in calories intake.
Well, not yet you don't. I mean, let's be weird.
Name, image, and likeness.
That's exactly right.
Baby.
You are available
for
it. Coach, appreciate your time. Congratulations on a fantastic 2020.
Thank you, Greg.
There he is, Colby Carthel, head coach of those Stephen F. Austin Lumberjacks, Axum Jacks, joining us. Good man. We've known him for a while, back in his A&M Commerce days. He won a title there. The Luis Perez days. So, an excitable fella. Let's say that. An excitable fella.
He gets the people going.
He really does.
He's here for one thing and one thing only. He gets the people going.
That's exactly right. So we appreciate Colby Carthel hopping on with us there at the THSCA Coaching School and Convention. Let's go live over to the production booth for America's second favorite segment, Final Thoughts.
That makes it sound a lot more important than this desk really is, so thank you. But no, wanted to highlight a couple things. We brought up the fact that we have a new 5-star. There is a whole article that Greg Powers has written on that, along with the This Week in Recruiting article. But there's one other big piece of content on TexasFootball.com to know about. Our man, Greg Powers, he has an article entitled Bold Predictions on the Top 10 Uncommitted Texas High School Football Recruits, and that to me is pretty stinking fun. Powers is throwing out hot takes, so that is on TexasFootball.com and ready to be read.
Yeah.
Hot take Powers.
Yes, hot take Powers.
Hashtag hot take Powers.
I thought I had something else. Nope, I don't.
We don't have any programming notes. I think we got our first normal week in a long time. Well, I say that. We ruined that on Monday by doing a live show.
Yeah, exactly.
From here on out.
Yeah, exactly right. So, that's going to do it for us. Thanks for spending a little bit of your day with us. Follow us on Twitter at DCTF. Like us on Facebook, facebook.com/Dave Campbell's. Follow us on Instagram, instagram.com/Dave Campbell's. And, of course, see us at TexasFootball.com. Thanks again to SFA coach Colby Carthel for being our guest. For Greg Powers and Ashley Pickle, I'm Greg Tepper. Vince Young, please get your Player of the Year trophy. We'll see you tomorrow on Texas Football Today.